You're okay.
Sorry, oh, so it's too late now.
Okay. No,
We can actually change it. Sorry, we should have asked that.
I forgot to ask you.
Like, cover your ears, recording in progress. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for joining us for our May roundtable meeting. And sincere thank you to our guests for being here today. Please welcome Katie Davenport, who is the official title is
Supervisor of K-12 Science and Technology.
Okay, Supervisor of K-12 Science and Technology. And just a reminder that in shifting this program to a more cooperative and interactive form of communication, we ask everyone here, both in the room and on Zoom joining us, to treat Katie with the utmost respect and appreciation for being here. This meeting, as with all of our roundtables, will occur in the spirit of cooperation, open communication, and mutual respect. The meeting is being recorded and can be found on our YouTube page. Welcome.
And we would also like to welcome Dr. Ranelli, Megan Schaefer, and Amy Buckman here, who are also in the room as our.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for being here. Okay, great. And I'll start. So we have kind of our questions that we ask every guest. And so we would love to hear about your job and, if there are things that you'd like for us as parents to understand better about what it is you do.
Sure. So yeah, my job title on paper is Supervisor for Science and Technology, K-12, but it's actually a little bit broader than that. So I work with our elementary teachers who all teach science in the classroom, as well as the STEM teachers in the elementary school, middle school science teachers, high school science teachers, middle school and high school computer science, middle school and high school tech ed, middle school and high school family and consumer science, which is what we called home ec in my day.
Mine too.
And middle school leadership and K-12 health and phys ed.
Oh, health and physical under you.
Just
Health
threw
and-
that in there.
So
That's
just-
like a bonus. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a whole bunch of different kinds of, I find common themes in those subjects, actually. I think, for example, in health, you're learning about the science of your body. Family consumer science, like when you're making a recipe, you are designing, you're experimenting, you have a goal you're trying to, so it's more like engineering in a way. So I see some common threads in all of these things, but also to me, a wonderful thing about my job is that every day is different. Every day I'm thinking about different kinds of things. I might back to back be on the phone negotiating a textbook contract, and then the next phone call is my crickets arrived and they're all dead. What should I do next?
Hopefully don't get that call too often.
And not too often, no, but it can happen. So I like to be in this building as little as I can manage and in schools as much as I can. I feel like I learn a lot from being in the classroom in terms of how to support teachers in supporting kids. Before I've been here for a little bit more than a year. I started last February. Before that, I was the director of science for the school district of Philadelphia. So it was kind of a similar job, but I had 250 schools. Cool. And so now having 11, it is such a luxury for me to be able to build relationships in every single school. And I take advantage of that.
Wow. Big difference.
It is in some ways a huge difference, and in some ways the problems and challenges are not dissimilar. But I'm very much enjoying being here. It's a lovely place to work.
Great. So as Megan can testify, this demystification has become a buzzword in understanding the curriculum in LMSD.
Okay.
And with respect to the Pennsylvania STEEL standards, can you help to demystify what this means for our district?
Sure. Okay. So STEELS is an acronym, and you might think it's similar to STEM. So the science, technology, and engineering is the STE, and then the ELS is environmental literacy and sustainability. So we took out the math, and we put in environmental literacy and sustainability, and that's STEELS. Those standards cover those areas. STEELS is actually based on a set of national standards called the Next Generation Science Standards, which are more than 10 years old. But Pennsylvania became the 48th or so state to adopt or adapt those national standards, which was a long time coming, obviously, and I was quite impatient for that. But the benefit is we have 10 years of practice research to learn from of other states who began to implement these standards and to learn how they did it and what they were successful in. So to demystify what those standards mean, I often use an analogy for cooking. Okay, if you're going to be a chef, you have to have knowledge of recipes. You have to know about different kinds of food. That's kind of like our science content. And that's something that's always been part of science instruction, is to learn the science content. To be a good chef, you also need to have skills. You need to be able to like slice and dice and know how to saute or whatever, boil an egg. And those are science skills. And in good science classrooms, you would also learn those things. The third thing that really like makes you a real chef and not just someone who cooks a meal is that like you know how to fix problems. You know how to like think about, oh, like this dish is too salty. I can't start again. So what can I add or how can I change it to make it taste good now that I'm halfway through? So knowing how to think like a chef, in the same way we have part of our standards is thinking like a scientist. So knowing how structure relates to function, knowing how to use patterns to figure out what's happening in a system. That's a big difference in the new standards, is that we're not just learning science content. We're not just learning science skills. We're also learning how to think like a scientist. That's how I would really think about these standards. And so like the shift is when I was in school. Oh, interestingly, I wasn't like that into science when I was in high school. Because the way that I learned science was, here are a bunch of words for you to memorize, which I could do, right? But like that didn't really excite me. When I went to college, I went to Swarthmore, just around here. That's how I got in this area. I had a wonderful freshman teacher who really focused on the experiments that scientists did to know the things that we know. And that made me super interested. Oh, like, okay, I have been taught to memorize that all living things are made of cells, but how do we really know that? That really brought science alive to me. The difference with these standards is now like learning about how we know is not something that only the most advanced students get to do. It's something that everybody gets to do. Do you feel less mystified? Yeah. Excellent.
So can you tell us what's going well and what you find challenging with the implementation? I mean, I guess if I was to follow up on what you just asked, which is off our, the questions we sent you, but like how that kind of translates into the classroom, like what that actually
Yeah, for sure.
looks like.
Yeah, so one thing that is maybe a shift sometimes in how we all learned science is that rather than saying, okay, well, this unit is about rocks. Everybody take out your notebook. We're going to learn about the 3 kinds of rocks. We think about why humans have science. Why did we have science? Because we were curious about stuff in the world that was either like confusing and puzzling or a problem that we needed to solve. So rather than framing our science curriculum in terms of topics that we need to know, we frame it in terms of things we need to figure out or problems we need to solve. So rather than starting with, here are the 3 kinds of rocks, we might start with, here is a desert, and in the desert is a whale skeleton. How could that be? What does that mean? That means that there must have been whales swimming in what is now a desert. Well, what does that mean? That means that like this place wasn't always the way it was. So how do these places on Earth change over time? Well, we need to know some stuff to figure that out. It turns out down the road, one of the things we're going to need to know is we're going to need to know about different kinds of rocks. But now we know that for a reason, to figure something out. And so the framing of the learning is going to be more in terms of things we want to know about. So that might be one big difference. I think what we are really like blessed with a really expert faculty that is very passionate about what they do and interested in what they do. And like, I have really enjoyed one thing I really enjoy in my work is leading professional learning. And there's just like a lot of excitement about learning to take what we do and do it in a somewhat different way. I think I'll speak for myself as a teacher, because I was a biology teacher for many years, like you become a teacher often because like you know a lot of stuff. And knowing a lot of stuff is really important, but it's not always the most important thing in this context of teaching. That like me knowing everything as the teacher may not be as important as teaching you as the student how to find out stuff yourself. And that is like learning how to do that. Like if you ask me a question and I know the answer, oh, but I'm not going to tell you the answer exactly. I'm going to teach you how to figure out the answer yourself. That is that can be challenging and it can be uncomfortable. But it is really worthwhile for our students.
Okay, great. So are there ways that you are able to work with students in order to incorporate a diverse set of student voices and experiences into your
I'm
decisions?
so glad you asked that. That is a really wonderful question. So one thing when I go into classrooms, a question that I always like to ask is I'll get some students and I'll be like, so what are you doing today and why are you doing it? And from that, I can learn an awful lot about what's happening in the classroom and how students are understanding their work. So if the students are saying, we're doing this because the teacher told me to, versus if they say, hey, we're doing this experiment because we're trying to find out if air has weight, and we're trying to figure out if air has weight because we're trying to figure out this other thing.
Mhm.
That second answer is a little more exciting to me in terms of what's happening in the classroom. What else do I want to say? I think it's really important when I'm visiting a classroom is that like I'm paying attention to students who might not be talking and who might not be giving the answer, and to try to figure out like how those students can be brought in. It is, how do I want to say? Oh, I want to talk about, there's a great program called the Chief Science Officer Program, which is coming to us from the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, where we have identified some students. We started in the middle school who want to be leaders in science, and they are starting their own projects to either enhance science education or bring to light some kind of science project that they want to do. That is, yeah, that is something that is like a really cool opportunity to see how things are affecting students, because we think that we know what they're receiving and we don't always know like how they're taking everything. So
You mentioned professional learning with the teachers, which
Yes.
is great.
yes,
So can you tell us a little bit also about what professional development for you looks like?
For
Like,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause you must get out there as well.
absolutely. Oh, my own professional learning.
Well, but
Is that what you
I
mean?
guess
Or
both.
how I-
Yeah,
Okay.
both, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking about professional learning that I am facilitating for teachers, I think about many of the same things that I just talked about with student learning. So it needs to be, if I cannot frame what I want to share with teachers in a way that explains something to them or solves a problem for them, then that's not going to be very effective professional learning. If I say, just like, here are the 3 kinds of rocks, like, here are the 3 kinds of essay prompts, or here are the, here are the 3 kinds of whatever, like they're not going to respond to that as much as if I compose it as like, here's a challenge that I know that some of you are having in your classrooms, like, and here's an approach that might help. And how will I know to do that? Only by asking them. So a really important part of professional learning for me, like one of the first steps I do when I have a day professional learning, is I ask the teachers, hey, what challenges are you having? What are you interested in learning more about? In this role where I'm not just responsible for science, but a whole bunch of other disciplines, that has been a new challenge for me. So like, how do I provide professional learning to phys ed teachers? How do I provide professional learning to FCS teachers? For example, that latter group, they told me, we're having trouble with our sewing machines. They break and we don't always know how to fix them. Can you help us to get a workshop on repair of the sewing machines? And I was like, yeah, I can. I can't lead that workshop for sure, but I can help you figure out how you can get, so they just last May 20th, they went down to Philadelphia to do a little workshop on sewing machine repair. So I was really proud
great.
of that.
Yeah.
Um,
My
So-
daughter loved her sewing class. We'll just put in a plug for it for
my
anyone.
mom still has a tote bag that I
Yeah.
made,
Oh.
so.
That's great.
So I try to have, I do always have something that I think is important and I want to share, but I really try to structure the days as much as I can with some stuff that they say that they want to learn more about, and how can I frame that in a way that also achieves whatever goals I might have for them as well. For
And-
my own
Yeah, I was gonna
learning,
say, and for
yeah.
your own learning, like, is there anything that,
There
kinda
are, so
comes into
believe it
play?
or not, there are some, actually I have a meeting later today. There's something called the Pennsylvania Science Education Leaders Network, and the acronym for that is PENCIL. Science Education Leaders, that's cool. And so that's folks like me across the state, and we talk about implementing these new standards and what are our different challenges. And you know, the challenges here might be somewhat different than they are in Philadelphia, or how they might be in a rural part of Pennsylvania. But it's very, very helpful to have colleagues at the same level to collaborate with. That's one difference from working in Philadelphia. I had a team of other science administrators, and we would do that work together. Now being the science person, I don't feel lonely because I do have those networks, but if I didn't, I would feel lonely. Science is different. It's its own thing.
We're glad you're not lonely.
Yeah, me too.
No one should be lonely.
So this is a little bit of a tricky question, but how do you
Okay.
measure your success?
I thought about that. I wrote some notes for that. So my ultimate success, obviously, is student outcomes. And as a scientist especially, I'm keenly aware that like there is no straight line between any change that I make and a student outcome. There are so many things that go into that. So I also want to think about the steps that I can be pretty sure about my impact on, and also look at the student outcomes. So in terms of things that I can know that I can affect, there's just the logistics. Did teachers get the books that they were supposed to get? Do they know what the content is that they're meant to teach, where to find the resources, how to get help? So that's one measure of success. And going into the classrooms, again, is key for that, because I may spend weeks creating a beautiful curriculum document, and then I go to the classroom and I see teacher is not teaching it, and I say, oh, well, how come? And they're like, oh, I didn't know that that was there. Oops, I forgot an important part. I forgot a communication step, and I won't, but right, like, so something like that, you need to be in the classroom to make sure that all your beautiful ideas are actually being communicated effectively. Okay, so there's logistical, there's the teacher knowledge. So, okay, the teacher has received what I'm putting out there, but did they correctly understand what they did? I often see this was a topic of discussion in my most recent pencil meeting, which was like, how do you gauge the effectiveness of your professional development? And a lot of people were saying, oh, well, I give a survey and I ask for their, you know, to ask the teachers, like, how confident do you feel about the new standards? And I was like, I might ask a different question, which is like, tell me about the new standards in your own words, because someone might feel very confident and be correct. Right, well,
Yeah.
or the reverse is also true. I have some of my most accomplished teachers often say, oh, I feel totally confused. And why do they feel totally confused? Because they're really thinking about it, right? And when you really think about something that's complicated, then you may feel a lot of different feelings. So I would want to ask teachers, like, are you picking up what I'm putting down, and show me. I want to go into the classrooms and see teacher practice, just to maybe make it a little more concrete. Like, I want to see the focus in the classroom on student understanding and student learning, not on teacher expertise. I want to see students, we talk about hands-on in science, but just because students are doing something with their hands doesn't mean what they're doing is cognitively rich. So I want to see students analyzing, asking questions, designing, solving problems, whether they are physically manipulating things or not is actually less important. Yeah, and then the last measure of my success would be that those student outcomes, seeing students with the better understanding of science, and also like feeling more that science is for them. And one thing that I would ask all of you to do as grown-ups in the lives of kids is please don't ever say in front of your kid, I'm not a science person, I don't like science, it's so hard. Same thing, yeah, well, it's really, really common, but think about this. Would you ever say in front of your kid, hate reading? So hard. No, we would never do that, but we do it for science and math. And kids, just like kids pick up what you put out there and they are listening to you. And just like, you know, you don't talk bad about your appearance in front of your kids, because then they're like, oh, well, what's wrong with my appearance? I would encourage you to say like, oh, like this science thing is hard, but like it's interesting to learn about. And a big part of being a scientist is that you don't know everything. So if you don't know everything, guess what? You're being a scientist. You're
That's
succeeding.
really good advice. I appreciate that. Just sticking on the student outcome
Uh-huh.
stuff, sorry, but
No.
like, so I mean, I know we have, you know, the keystones and the PSSAs. Are there other measures that you use?
Yeah,
And,
so
like, how
that's
does
so
that-
interesting. Mhm.
It's a tricky one, right? Like,
So there is some rule that like when you have a measurement and you make that measurement your goal, then that measurement isn't really a good measurement anymore. So like if the only thing I wanted to do was have kids do really
Right.
well in the PSSA, and I could we can definitely make that our goal and focus on that, but then why were we doing that? Because we thought the PSSA would measure how much they know about science. But if we're just focusing on the PSSA results, we're actually not focusing on the real thing, which is how well they know
really
science.
understand science.
So like,
Yeah.
I would certainly like those tests inform us, but I don't like to think of those as the ultimate goal. The other thing is I have a really interesting experience that I recommend to all teachers is I've been part of the committee that puts those tests together. And whatever you're imagining, like, it's not, you make documents by committee, right? Have you written a
We just
document
did
by
our-
committee?
our bylaws. We just went through that. Well, some of us, but yeah.
It is, when you're creating something by committee, it is not always with the singular vision and rigor that you might expect, right? Like teachers are like, well, I like this question. Well, I don't like this question. Well, this question actually isn't aligned to the standard, but I just really like it. You know, so I don't like idealize or put on a pedestal those exams. They have their purpose. We also know that they are like performance on them is highly correlated with income. That's the most predictive thing. So I don't find it like as my North Star. I really want, like, going back to the classroom and saying, hey, student, what are you doing and why are you doing it? Like, that is really gonna tell me if students are learning science in a way that's gonna be meaningful to them.
We have the joy meter at our house.
The joy meter,
Yes. Fridays, I know Friday's STEM day. It's every Friday. She goes, yay, it's Friday, it's STEM. She loves it.
they are,
I
so
couldn't tell you exactly what about it that she loves. I just know she loves Fridays.
I can tell you a little bit about that because
Penguins.
we are so lucky, but STEM across this, so when I first heard that when I came here and I heard, oh, we have STEM in elementary school, my first thought honestly was, oh no, that means they don't teach science in the regular classroom, because in a lot of districts that is the case. They made STEM a special that they get once a week. And so then they don't have to do science in the elementary class, but that's not what happens here. They get science in their regular elementary class, and they also get something different, which is the STEM elective. And that STEM elective is so stinking cool. And what I heard from the classroom teachers is since the kids started doing it, they are better problem solvers. They are better at working together. They are better at dealing with failing and trying again. And I'm very jealous of these students who have the opportunity to do this, because I hear them. We were talking about thinking like a scientist, thinking like an engineer, like they're doing that. And that is a really cool opportunity. And I can't wait to see when these kids go to middle school and high school, how this will translate for them.
That would be, I mean, one of the things that I think as parents we talk about, and I go to a lot of board meetings and it comes up a lot, is kind of like the numbers or metrics and how you measure that, like how to, and I don't know, just like that would be, you know, I always look for like little tidbits of like positive information to get out. Like that would be something amazing to share with parents, like listening, but you know, like our kids, here's how we know that they're doing better and that they're more engaged. And you know, I don't know if there are any ways to kind of help
That's
keep
interesting.
that metric.
Uh-huh.
But I think they're like little nuggets like that I think
Yeah.
our community is kind of hungry for right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess the last question we have before we open it up to everyone here is, are there any other questions that you wish we asked that we kind of,
So I
Didn't
thought
make
about
clear.
that, I thought about that one in the car ahead of time, so I kind of cheated.
that's okay, it's all good.
So a question that could be on this list that wasn't on the list that I will answer for you, because if you didn't say that I should answer it, but I'm gonna answer it. Is, hey, KD, like you have a job that you really enjoy and feel successful in. Like, I hope that my kid one day has a job they really enjoy and feel successful in. Like, how did you get to this amazing place?
Oh,
And I'll tell you, the way that I got it is by actually, right? I didn't really, wasn't that into science. I didn't take a single AP science class in high school. I did take AP calculus my senior year, but I did not accelerate in math whatsoever. I actually had 2 years in kindergarten, you know, because I was just a little slower on some things. I had a great college experience. I did not go to the college. I mean, I went to Swarthmore, but I didn't know what I wanted to major in when I got there. When I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I tried a couple different jobs. And I took a very low paying private school job that was like an hour, more than an hour away, very inconvenient, like not what you would think is a great opportunity. And I loved it. And I was like, I want to do this more and I want to learn about it. And that is kind of how I got there. And I remember as a high school student and a college student feeling so bad about myself because I didn't know what I wanted to do. How could I have known? I couldn't. What the best thing for me to do was to just try a bunch of different things and not worry about it too much.
To experiment like a scientist.
Yo, I didn't think about that, but you're right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's.
I think for that career plan.
Yeah.
It's the topical search that we're all like, oh, I love this particular subject.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I have the joy leader in my house.
Mhm.
Because I never want my kids getting wrapped around the axle of like, I'm not good at math, or I'm good at math, or I'm not good at science.
Yeah.
I'm not good at- What today brought me joy?
Right.
What are the things that made you excited to go back? And I think most of us forget that skills are sometimes that joy and the skill.
Mm-hmm. And what,
I've been taking
yeah.
notes about is
Mhm.
we as parents can learn from that scientific inquiry
Mhm.
of.
Yeah.
Why? Rather than the metrics. I hate the metrics because I think it labels. And I'm always looking for what the fundamental thing that blows my kid up with joy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think what you found out is you're really good at showing people the how, the what, not the it.
Right. And so, right. So then when I was exactly right. So I was a biology major at Swarthmore, but then I did like some lab internships. They had to bring in the Geiger counter one day because like I had like contaminated the whole lab with radioactive tracer. I was not a good scientist. I love learning about science, and what I figured out is I really loved helping other people learn about science.
My dad was a math teacher. He was horrible at math. He could teach children.
Mhm.
that were
Well,
not good at
sometimes
math.
that's the better teacher,
Mhm.
right?
And I
Like if
still
it comes
think that-
innately to you, it's hard to know how to teach, but if you work hard to learn something that you love,
He was the guy. that
yeah.
said, I was not a good math student. I know how to make it. understandable to
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, I know what it's like to not be the good math student, and that is really important.
I love
I do too. Thank you, thank you.
My pleasure.
I know we probably have questions and I see that there's some chat, but while we have people in the room, is there any, Becca? Yeah.
I always jump in first, so very good.
You always have good questions, rightfully so.
This one I'm actually just super curious. You spoke a little bit about the Chief Science Officer program
Oh.
that's coming through NCIU. I would
Yeah.
love to hear more about that because it sounds really interesting and it's not something that I
Yeah.
have a middle schooler. I will admit I have selfish interest and curiosity about that. But
So it's one or two students per school. What we decided to do in some schools, they like elect the chief science officer. We decided to take a student who was already on student government so that they already were elected and they bring kind of that science lens to student government. They each have their own individual project, which I am not gonna steal their thunder. I would say invite them to your meeting and have them tell you about their individual projects. But they get to go to just like I go to my meeting of other science leaders, they get to go to their meeting of other chief science officers from other schools. So they've had several meetings this week, it's not this week, this year. I think they like kind of dress business casual and they go to different workshops where they learn leadership skills. It's really cool.
What grades is this?
Our chief science officers are in middle school. Some schools do it in high school. But we had our middle school leadership class that we thought was a nice connection with this program.
So they do their own individual projects, but like, what is it? What is the topic supposed to be about?
So it can be, for example, it could be but we have this evening, in fact, our K-2 STEM night. So for example, students might have a project to set up some demonstration tables where they show what they do in middle school to kids who are in elementary school. Maybe they would have a project to have, for example, girls in computer science and to start a club. It can really be anything that they're interested in. And they get to, I feel like the collaboration with other students from other schools is really important because especially as a kid, like you think that your environment is the only environment, and getting to see like what other schools are like and what other kids are doing is a tremendous opportunity. Yeah, I'd be happy to connect you with those students or their teachers if you wanna,
I have a follow-up, but I don't wanna ask everything.
okay, that is very intellectually generous.
And then maybe a piggyback. I was just curious what kind of role you play in the extracurricular, like,
Mhm.
Lego League and
Mhm.
TSA and things like that, in terms of like helping to identify clubs that would come to the different schools, or helping them to structure the or how those go, or
Yeah.
the different.
So most clubs operate out of the school, and
Yeah.
like would certainly like support, but I don't administrate them. I have our Lego League has come out of our office in the past. It is quite a big one. And then the big like extracurricular that I have been involved with is our summer programming, our summer
Just gonna
STEM
ask about
camps.
that.
Yeah. And then we have some like STEM after school clubs. So it
Well,
kind of,
maybe that's what I'm asking about,
Mhm.
after school
Mhm.
STEM related things. And maybe I guess I was wondering too, in terms of metrics of seeing kids who found joy. I think
yes.
my son's grade was maybe one of the first that got the STEM class.
Mhm.
Once I got introduced
Mhm.
when he was in fourth,
Mhm.
and now he's in.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see how that translates to kids' engagement with after-school
Mhm.
activities. I know
Mhm.
at Blackrock, the TSA club had like 80 kids. It almost was like too big, but I'd be curious to
Mhm.
see, is there a growth and interest in getting involved in these different types of clubs based on having it introduced and kids finding joy and excitement?
Yeah, oh, there absolutely is. And like to the point where some of these STEM clubs are like competing with each, like we can't add another one because there are so many, like all the STEM electives are just like pulling kids in different, into different clubs and they can't do them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was talking with one teacher who has a club for students of color in STEM, and he said in the years that he's done it, he has absolutely seen increase in enrollment in electives in high school and also involvement in the after school clubs. So that is another place where like we might look for like what you were saying, metrics is like student involvement based on these extracurriculars. A lot of times we focus on like I said, the survey, the self-report of like, are you more interested in STEM now that you did this, which is cool. But also like what you say at the end of a week is probably not as important as are you impacted by this years down the road. And that is like, as a scientist, that's harder to feel confident in your measurement because a lot of things can affect somebody and what they do several years down the road. But I think it is like definitely gives another data story besides test score.
So how much do you get to meet with, like, say, grade teams or vertical teaming?
Mhm.
Because, you know, like what a teacher or a group is gonna teach in second grade.
Right.
Should be built upon when it cycles back.
Mhm.
And maybe not even cycles because they're building up scientific theory in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. So in terms of grade teams, I had a goal this year to meet with every grade team every 6 weeks. which, so I have leads. I have, at every building and every grade, there's someone who is designated the science lead, which is, might be somebody who really loves science, or might be the person who wasn't the ELA lead or the math lead, it should be the science lead, doesn't matter. So I meet with that team every 6 weeks in the morning, and we check in on how things are going, what's coming up, how I can support them. I've met every kindergarten PLC, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and then middle and high school. I didn't, 1st grade and 2nd grade, I didn't get this year, but next year. So I think it's really important to have a time to sit down with each of those individual grade teams. The vertical thing is super important and very hard to coordinate because, especially my elementary teachers, and we have our district PD days, we have a couple of them in the year. Who wants those teachers? Dory wants them, Jason wants them, I want them. Probably our counseling department wants them for something else. They probably need to have something else. So it is, I'm still kind of trying to figure out like, how can I best do that vertical work? Is it on a PD day? Do I do it by school? Like, might that be more effective? I'm not sure. Part of the beauty of the standards is that vertical learning is in the standards. And so like the way that a kid learns about cause and effect in kindergarten is different than how they're to learn it in 2nd grade or 4th grade or 6th grade. And that is written into the standards. And so to some degree, if they understand the standards well, they'll be doing that correctly. But I couldn't agree more that like understanding where kids have been and where they're going is really important. And teachers say they value that too. So that's something I've tried to build in on PD days. I've been so far like more successful with that in middle and high school because it's easier to get them all to myself.
Teaching.
Right. Right.
Is there not summer money, like school district summer money to like come in and do some of that vertical planning?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's the planning, right? And then that's gonna be the teachers who come in to choose to do that. And then there's also stuff that I would want everyone to know and be a part of. So, but yes, absolutely, I do have people coming in this summer. And so, for example, this summer, we're planning for our 6th grade implementation of Twig Science, which is our new core resource. And I have invited our 7th and 8th grade teachers who want to be part of that to be part of that too, for a couple of reasons. One, they're going to be teaching Twig Science soon too, and so that I would like them to be familiar with it, but also, as you were saying, to kind of see that vertical progression. Here's my secret dream. I would love we talked about that STEM, K-4 STEM class. So they have a class full of 1st graders or 2nd graders and a bunch of materials, and that they need the kids to like do this project with the materials, but use them the right way and share and all that. I want to bring my high school teachers into that classroom and watch, because the classroom management is off the charts amazing. And I think there's there would be a lot for them to learn. Same thing, you know what? Same thing in the family consumer science lab. When I saw how they lay out their cooking stations, what they do is they take a picture of how it looks when it's all put together and put away, and they post a picture of that. So when the students are cleaning up, they know what it's supposed to look like. That would work great in the lab.
A lot of parents do that for their kids too, especially if they, for kids with learning differences, like to show like, okay, this is what your room looks like cleaned up. This is what your cubby looks like cleaned up, so that kid has a point of reference.
Fascinating.
That's a
That
very
I didn't
common
even think
tool
about
for-
using that in parenting, but that is
Oh,
a
yeah,
good idea.
yeah. It's a helpful one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
a lot,
parenting questions, you got a lot.
Okay,
Yeah, a
all
lot of-
right, a
lot of
lot of our
advice.
students will double up in science at some point or another in high school. How do you think that compares to other districts around us? Are we doing that more often or
Is that a good idea?
less often,
a
the
good
same?
idea?
Is it a good idea? Is it too much?
Because I'd
I
say
don't,
take
how do you
marks,
feel
but-
about that? I know that's been a long standing thing
Mhm.
here, that we're able to offer that to students that want to double up.
And when you say just so we're talking about the same thing, when you say double up, you
Take 2
mean
science classes in the same year,
one be a core and one be elective, or both as core?
either or.
So I would not give a blanket, it's good or it's bad, but I would think about what is the purpose. I don't think anybody would disagree with this when I say it, but it still is definitely a phenomenon, like, there's no race and there's no getting ahead. You're not gonna win by taking more classes. Yeah, you're not gonna win the race. If you're taking 2 sciences because you really like science and you want to be doing science for more of your day, cool, that's awesome. I don't see a need personally to, oh, I'm gonna take biology over the summer before I start high school so that I'm ahead. I don't think that you are, I don't think that you are ahead, like, you're gonna learn a lot in biology class, and you'll also learn a lot if you take a science elective. So that's kind of how I think about it, but also, like I said, like, that's not how I came up when I was in high school. And I feel
And where
very,
you are.
I feel very satisfied with
Mhm.
my education, not doing it that way.
Do you know how it compares to surrounding districts in terms of?
I
Their
think that
student out.
there are, the other districts do have some things like that, but it seems like we are on the farther end of the spectrum in terms of that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and making, and like, everything, like, we offer a lot of options, in a way that I think is, yeah, it's on the farther end of the scale.
Mhm.
So do you think that pressure to do that perhaps is
Mhm.
coming from peers?
So interesting.
College applications, I would say.
I think
actually.
that's
Mhm.
probably the.
Like my kids were definitely under the belief that like taking more science was gonna help them get into more schools, and my assertion is actually like taking an art class instead would make you a way more interesting person, and they intersect and there are ways to bring it into each other, but no one listens to me.
Wait, but so that was your
So
opinion,
long.
but where did
Mhm.
you get that?
Right. I mean, that,
It came from somewhere.
Well, when you go on the tours, when you go on the college tours, they explicitly say to you,
What
and
can you do?
hear it at Swarthmore, you hear it at, Colgate, at, all the school, like, take the highest number of hardest classes you can do and get the best grades in them that you can get. Like, if you want to get in here, that's what you need to do. Like, that's
what they tell you.
what they tell you.
Then it trickles down, all of a sudden in 9th grade, they just like.
They
know-
feel the
They
energy.
know what D1, D2, D3 is all of a sudden, when like, this is not even a term that has ever been, like, it just somehow.
Filters
comes to
down.
Older siblings.
So I've
and
got 3 more
filters
months
down.
before it like.
Pretty much.
Basically.
Blows up. in our house, right?
Yeah.
Well,
it's
and then a
it's
lot of
fun.
students will double their math too. Like-
Done both.
Yeah, so have, yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about summer a little bit, and I
Mhm.
know that one thing the district had been talking about was kind of revamping the summer health. program,
yes,
But that fall
that's so cool.
because
Yes,
that-
absolutely.
that is
Uh-huh.
ancient, antiquated curriculum, the old curriculum that we had.
So.
And I know that this year, I think they
yeah.
did something sort of new, but
So what we did,
It's online, but the old
this
questions.
emerged before I became the supervisor of health and phys
Yeah,
ed, so I can take
I
no,
know that the.
I can take no credit for it, but I can celebrate the work of the teachers that were involved. Laura Huddlemeyer, who is our
Mhm,
instructional tech coach, and several of our health PE classes, health PE teachers took our in-person health curriculum, which is, it seems like beloved. Students really value it, and it's very responsive to them, and they converted that into an online experience that students will be able to take this summer. We are no longer offering health through the MVP.
Oh, that's great.
Right? I celebrate that.
That was pretty antiquated, some of that
Yeah.
stuff that came out of there.
So we hope this is gonna be a lot more meaningful for students, and that
Yes.
they will still
That's
get
great.
a great experience with
That's good
that.
news. Thank you. That's great.
Can let you know, my
Um,
daughter's taking it.
Okay,
So
good,
mine.
good. I see that Cicely has questions, but,
No, I don't see them.
oh, I see a chat. Sorry for the close-up of my face, people. Oh, Lisa, I agree what you said. I don't know what I said. Okay, love what you. This is my question, if there's time. I love what you shared about the outcome of, why can't I, oh, because am I going the wrong way? Okay,
Mhm.
the outcome of STEM. Do you think there are more opportunities through Sorry, guys, my eyes are feeling.
Yeah, okay, so
Okay.
I can read it.
This is the question. If
Uh-huh.
there is time, I love what you shared about the outcome of STEM. Do you think there are more opportunities throughout all of the school grades that could encourage our kids to take more risks and fall forward without worrying
Fail
about the
forward, uh-huh.
consequences?
Uh-huh.
Fail forward
Uh-huh.
without worrying about the consequences, i.e. grades. Maybe a class that is pass fail where it's really hard to fail it. But you don't have to ask it if it seems too elementary. No, it's a great
No,
question,
it's a great
actually. I like
question.
that.
Yeah, so I think you certainly could have like a pass fail class as one option for that. I think having extracurricular opportunities is a wonderful opportunity for that, but also there are ways to incorporate it in the classroom. And I was just talking to a teacher at Harriton who tried something different. There's something that we do in high school called dimensional analysis, which involves a lot of fractions and is something that kids often find hard. And even like, I'm sure some of you have seen the phenomenon where like, there's like a math formula and like, if you like are into doing it, you can do it. But then if someone like asks you a conceptual question about why, then you're like, actually, I have no idea why this works. And so usually when the teacher does this dimensional analysis with the students, he provides a lot of step-by-step support and confirmation that you're right before you move on. And this time he said, your job is to figure it out. And here are the tools that I'm going to give you to help you figure it out, but I'm not going to tell you whether you're right or not. And I'm going to let you go through it. And he said the students, took it serious. So he was like wondering, oh, if I'm not going to like give them marks on it, are they going to try? They 100% did. And they were more successful because they had to trust their own instincts. I have a 5th grader and he's bringing home some math homework. And this kid is really good in his head with adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. And I see him taking out the calculator for something I know he doesn't need a calculator for. And I said, put that back in your bag because you can trust your brain. But if you learn to trust the calculator over your brain, it's going to be a bad situation for you. Put it away. And so giving kids a chance to trust their brains and to make mistakes and bounce back from it, like that's something that we can do in classrooms. That is really good for kids. I taught at Central High School in Philadelphia, which is a high performing academic magnet school. With every kid in Central High School was the best kid in their middle school. And so they come to this high school and there's a lot of anxiety. And so the first day of class or so, I might say like, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. And I want you to say the wrong answer. What's 2 + 2? They'll like kind of look around and they'll say 5. I'm like, that's wrong. Good. And I'll ask another kid a question and say, that's wrong. Okay. I still like you. I still respect you. You still belong in this classroom. And they laugh, but they get it. I think that, we have, it's so easy as a teacher to fall into this, like, I'm going to ask a question. You're going to raise your hand because you already know the answer. You say the answer. Now I feel good about myself because you knew the answer, even though you already knew it without me teaching it. And the rest of you didn't know it and you still don't know it. And you feel bad because she knew it and you didn't. The more productive interaction is going to happen where I ask you and you don't know, and we work together to figure it out. But that's more uncomfortable for everybody. And so that's something that like, I really try to celebrate. If a student gives an answer that's wrong, what a cool answer. Thank you for sharing that. Like, what I like about it is this, and not like, yeah. And also like, I want you to eventually get to what's right. But
it's a process.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
not go right to, okay, who else? Who else can answer my question?
Alice?
I have.
Okay.
One is just an observation. I have an elementary kid and a junior
Mhm.
now. And I feel like somewhere in between with the SEAL standards and just the way science is being taught, we all shifted to what is like the awesome, I'm a scientist, I'm thinking through this problem, to where the junior is, which is like, I want to know step by step how to do this. I want to be able to get an A, and I want you to tell me exactly how. And so my only observation with the 16-year-old, because the teachers at back to school night all explain this new kind of way of teaching and wanting the kids to figure it out themselves, and it sounds fantastic, but I'm not sure it is translated to the kids.
Yeah.
Understanding that like new approach.
Well, especially our older kids who didn't have it when they were younger, right?
Mhm.
So like the junior never had that when she was younger, and now, you know, she
Right.
may have been in a very math class, and comes home and says, "He didn't explain exactly how to do this, and now I have to figure it out." And
Yeah.
it's nothing. And
Yeah, and
like,
that, you know what, I should have mentioned that as part of the challenge, because I said like, oh, teachers can be uncomfortable when they're not the ones giving the answers, but students can also be really uncomfortable, especially the student who is used to getting 100%. How do you get I remember as a kid, because I was a star student, and other kids would ask me like, how do you do it? And I was like, you have to figure out what the teacher wants and give them
Yes,
exactly what
the
they want.
Denise Pope doing school, right? You know, that
Um,
Denise Pope doing.
and I
school,
didn't, like,
challenge success.
I didn't realize at the time, like, that's kind of messed up. But but it was true, but it was also true, and it worked. And so changing those rules on kids could well provoke some anxiety. And also, like, what I'm saying from research is best for students learning science is only one part of the stew, right? There's other parts where people feel like, I have to do this and I have to get this because I have to go here because I have to do this. And like, we actually know that like those steps are not as straightforward as that. Like, just because you do everything right in school does not guarantee that you're going to get to your dream college. Just because you go to your dream college is not going to guarantee that you actually like it there, or that it actually gets you the job that you think you want when you're 16. Like, those steps are not, but life is uncertain, right? Like, I also like want to have compassion for like, you don't really know what you're doing in life. And for some of us, if someone says, do it this way, that's going to be your ticket, then you want to do it. So it's complex, but it's interesting because one conversation we have in high school is about APs. And so sometimes someone will say, well, you know, it's all fine and good to talk about like more focus on concepts and process and less focus on content. But what about the APs? They need to know a lot of content for APs. Okay. But as we talk more about the APs, and you know, I might ask like, what do students really struggle with the most on the APs? It's not content, it's analysis. It's looking at an unfamiliar experiment and knowing how to make sense of it, which is exactly what a focus on these standards will help us to do. So in a way, like we all are focused on like one part of academic success, and like, please don't get me wrong, like knowing content is extremely important. But knowing content to the exclusion of being able to think about it productively. Again, going back to that situation where I can execute the math formula perfectly, just don't ask me what it means. You know, that limits you. And especially with the changes in technology that we've been experiencing, just knowing that content is going to be kind of worthless. Because we have a technological system that will know it for us. So yeah, we're going into a world that none of us know about or understand. So
That was my next. In 4 minutes or less. Can you talk about AI and how it's affecting?
Yeah, I can. There is so much to say about that. I think it's important. So when I left the classroom in 2017, I still had a chalkboard. I did not want a smartboard. I didn't like it. So that's like my orientation. I'm an analog person. I have an analog notebook. And my early impressions, I'm kind of more talking as a human being. My early impressions of AI were fear and discomfort. But I find that it's very important for me to know about it. Because as I know about it, number one, I can use it for what it can be used for, but I can also like know when it's being used for something it really can't do yet. So for example, to understand that like there's some conversation about, well, AI, you can use AI to generate lesson plans. Well, you can. And how, but it's important to understand how it's doing that. When AI is generating lesson plans, it's looking at all the lesson plans that exist and kind of making a sum up. It's you know, working on the same principle as predictive text on your phone. It's guessing the next word and guessing the next word that would be in a lesson plan. And sometimes that can come out to be something that looks a lot like a lesson plan. It could even be a lesson plan. But, you know, ultimately, if we do that for every lesson plan, then there is no more source of lesson plans. Right? That it's just gonna be
Right,
an
right,
infinite
right.
self-referential loop. And that's disturbing to me.
I'm also thinking about what you said to your son about the calculator, right? Like we need
Uh-huh.
to trust our brains a little bit too.
Right. So at this point in my work, which is not what you asked me about teaching, but this is what happens with humans and as we go in our own direction. Right? In my own work, I might use it to help me think of ideas. So I might say like, give me 50 ideas for this. And I might say, oh, here's one I didn't think of. You know what? I used it when I was preparing for my interview with Lower Merion School District. And I said, here's the job I'm applying for. Here's what I want to communicate about myself. What are some questions they might ask me? And what are some things I should be sure to focus on when I answer it? And it suggested to me some questions that
And clearly it
indeed,
worked.
but it didn't do the interview for me, right? And it didn't
right,
like, it brought, if I only relied on that, I think my interview would not have been successful. I used it as a
As a
thought
tool.
partner, right? But not my only thought partner. Like, I also used human beings.
Just to add on to this and maybe with a flavor,
Mhm.
so I've been podcasting about coffee. I've been listening to podcasts.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was like, oh,
I was like, cool.
that's very cool.
But I'm trying to learn
Mhm.
all about it, guys.
Mhm.
What I have found from most of the people that are talking about whether this is gonna be doomsday or this is gonna be great.
Mhm.
The people that are saying this will be great are the people that are saying prompting is what is really important.
Mhm. Correct.
And it kind of goes back to your theory about the scientific, right, how, why.
Mhm.
Dive deeper into this, tell me your sources. And I think in terms of science, what will be interesting with AI is the same sort of scientific inquiry that you talked about is how you get people's brains to talk about what is the question, what is the problem they're trying to solve.
Right.
That will be super important as we
Uh-huh.
delve into this new crazy world. I use it for all sorts of weird things, like planning field day. I'm like, I don't have the creative energy to think about what I would do in 90 minutes for
Right.
5 groups of kids. Like, yeah, tell me. And you said, here's the amount of students I have, here's the amount of activities and times. And it gave me a structure, and then we played with it in between it. And I had to look
Right.
over it. As a parent, I'm
Mhm.
giving out my creative energy because I have that.
Right. But the other thing though to remember about it is that it tells you what you want to hear. What you've told it that you want to hear. So if I say like, right. But if I say like, fine, here is a lesson plan, tell me how it's aligned to the standards, it'll tell me. But that doesn't mean it really is. That doesn't mean that as I humanly look at these standards and what the activity is, like, I see why you're making that connection because I asked you to, but.
Source it, and you
Right.
yourself go into the
Mhm.
source and say, oh, it's fun for this.
Yeah.
Great,
Mhm.
this is useful, or this is
Mhm.
not.
But yeah, I think that there is potential catastrophe for sure. Especially if if we as parents and teachers don't understand it and then we're having kids use it, I think that there's danger. And if we don't acknowledge that there's danger, then we're doing ourselves a disservice.
And there always has to be a new source, period. We hope that-
Yeah. I really hope that there will be a resurgence of humanism and people will value being human.
Me too.
Um,
It's probably
That's
a
a good
really
way.
good way to end.
Yes.
today.
I like that.
Let's all root for that. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Really nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Thank you. It was so great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're here as a resource if there's, ever anything that
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.